Hello and welcome to another episode of CyberMasters, everybody. How you doing? My friend Mark Horowitz on today's show talking about electronic vehicles and the huge revolution that's going on. Do you guys have an EV vehicle yet? I have some electronic bicycles, but I'm not on the EV part yet. But thanks for joining us on CyberMasters. Always trying to bring you a really exciting show. I made an effort to bring an expert in the field today, a pioneer in electronic vehicles and what's happening in the country, how it's being rolled out, what's going on. It's such an interesting take. I'm sure a lot of you have thought, hey, I want to get that EV vehicle, and are looking at all these details. You see the Teslas. I mean, when I'm in the car with the kids, they always like, oh, it's a Tesla, and it's like a game they play, right? But now you see a Tesla everywhere. Mark, welcome to CyberMasters. How are you?
I'm great, Ed. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Excellent. We've known each other many years. Please,
a long time.
Tell us a little bit about you and your company. It's very exciting. We'll pull up your website in a second.
It's been a very, very interesting ride. And thank you for having me here.
My pleasure.
It's interesting. You spoke of me as a pioneer, and honestly, it feels like this is really the Wild West.
Really?
And I say that because there's so much that's unknown, and there is so much that is known, and there is so much that is literally changing every single day.
Daily changes, constant news.
Constant. And it fascinates me. It really fascinates me. We started green energy technology 4 years ago, and it's really a matter of just seizing an opportunity. My partner and I saw a totally fragmented business where the funny part of it is we called up one of the manufacturers and we asked them about the process, and they said, well, yeah, we're going to sell you a box. And we said, gee, what about the electronics? Do you have anything to support that? Do you have you have people to support that? He says, no, we're going to sell you a box.
Okay.
And I asked him 2, 3, 4 questions, and I got the very same answer, but with a slightly different intonation. And I just cracked up because it became so clear to us at the outset that certain people do certain things and they don't go a step beyond it.
Right, their limit is here.
He's limited to his scope. He's just an order taker. Tell me what flavor you want, which size do you want, and I'll sell you the box.
Yes.
That's basically what it amounted to. And so John and I had some lengthy conversations about.
Now, John is
my partner.
Your partner,
John,
and the company is called?
The company is Green Energy Technology. Thank you for pulling me back into that.
Yeah, if we could pull up the website here for a second. So
sure.
This is the company's called Green Energy Technology.
Right.
And you are specifically in the business of charging stations?
Charging stations is really what we do, but it's what's fascinating about it for me is that we have basically sewn together all of the steps that it takes from initial concept all the way through to plugging them in, getting them working, and believe it or not, we plant a tree for every single charger we put in the ground.
Wow. Who are these channel partners that you mentioned on the website?
There are a bunch of them. We have some faves, of course. I mean, we started out working with Green Lots. Green Lots was basically acquired by Shell Oil.
Okay.
And so it's Shell is now
by Shell Oil. Wow.
Shell Oil. Oh yeah, Shell Oil has plans. They have a 5-year, 10-year, 20-year, 50-year plans. And right now it looks like they're on their way out of the oil and gasoline distribution business and moving into electricity through a company that they call Shell Recharge.
Really? Oh,
yeah.
How interesting. They're looking to go green.
Yeah, they absolutely are. As a matter of fact, we had an agreement with them to do 8 or 9 gasoline stations, company-owned spots in New Jersey to install DC fast chargers on their sites.
Really? Okay.
And they're into it big time. We now have an agreement with them. We're now working with them, and we plan to be doing a lot of work with them. Very fascinating.
Are the other big oil companies getting involved as well?
I would anticipate so. but I couldn't speak to that.
I assume they're all.
They've all got to be chomping at the bit.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
quite frankly, they can see the future just as we do. As a matter of fact, that tagline is "The future is now."
Yes, I
So
saw that, right.
so we see that pretty clearly. We know that so much of what's going on here it's changing so radically, yet it's so incredibly exciting at the very same time. So you asked about channel partners. So
Yes.
we started out with green lots, and that morphed into Shell Oil.
Okay. Let's keep our page on.
We work with a company called Tritium, which is in the center of the screen.
Yes.
Which, by the way, literally just Monday opened up its plant in Lebanon, Tennessee, and they'll be cranking out about 30,000 DC fast chargers a year out of that facility.
Really?
Brand new.
Really?
And what's even better is that while we're waiting for equipment from them, which comes from Australia and then lands in California and then gets shipped, and you know what's happening with supply chain that's killing everybody.
It's terrible, sure.
They're going to be building those things right here in the U.S.
Oh,
How great is that?
excellent.
You
Wow.
know,
You'll
and
have
it's a
everything.
fabulous product.
And where are they going? Where are they putting these?
Well, we have been installing for them, as are many other companies. I mean, Revel, as an example. I'm sure you've heard of Revel.
Yes, Revel. Okay.
Revel has a site in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn. They're looking at a number of other sites here in New York. They're looking at a bunch of sites on the West Coast.
Is it full there? I mean, what's the charging time if you pull up to those stations? What have you seen that happens?
They're using DC fast chargers. They're using the RTM 75, which is 75 kilowatt per hour.
Okay,
which
75
basically
kilowatt
means,
per hour charge.
but it doesn't necessarily mean that you can get a 75 kilowatt charge. Let me tell you why.
Okay,
Here's part of the hidden mystery.
okay, I'm ready.
Here's part of the mystery. So there's a little devil in the details. It's called demand charges.
Demand charges. Okay.
Right. And that is an extra layer of revenue taken by, or tariff, if you will, taken by the utilities during high demand periods.
During the day kind of thing?
Well, in New York City, which is obviously Con Ed territory, strangely enough, that seems to be 4 p.m. to 8 p.m.
4 to 8. Okay, everybody's home, using their stuff.
Exactly. All right.
Ah.
Now, on Long Island, PSE&G, demand during the summer is all day.
Really? 24
Demand-
hours a day?
No, daylight, 7
Daylight.
a.m. to 10 p.m.
Got it. But everybody's
So-
cranking their ACs at night. It's not.
Yeah, I
I
understand
guess the
that.
businesses, the buildings are closed.
I understand that, but you're right. The businesses are shut down. However, when you're in the business of providing electric vehicle charging stations and the service of providing that charging for customers, you need to be very cognizant of when that electricity is available and at what cost.
Gotcha. Okay.
So when you asked me about when you start to lead into 75, you can get a 75 kilowatt charge, the answer to that is maybe. Simply because they too, Revel as an example,
Sure.
is very much aware of their cost of electricity, and they'll look to control it.
and
so-
maximize their profits. In that.
Maximize
Sure.
profits by limiting the amount of electricity that flows at any particular time of the day.
Got it.
Whereas, and again, conversely, for their own vehicles, and they've got a fleet of quote unquote taxi cabs, if you will, kind of like Ubers, they'll charge those at night because
yes.
that's when it's
Off-peak.
most cost effective.
Got it.
Okay.
Interesting.
Okay. So, channel partners, we work with a lot of different companies. We go out into the marketplace as being hardware agnostic.
Okay, so it doesn't matter
It
what
doesn't
brand.
matter what brand. We have our favorites, but if a client wants one thing versus another thing, we're real happy to give them what they want.
nice.
If we feel differently about what they should be using, we'll make a recommendation. If they accept it, fine. If they don't and they're hard and fast on what they want, customer's always right.
Is there a specific way these building owners or property owners have to engage? Or are there options of how they can get these installed on their properties? How do you do it?
Interesting question. And again, that really is part of what differentiates green energy technology from many of our competitors. And we really feel we have no competitors.
Okay.
And I'll tell you why. When you call us, you're making one phone call, and we do it all.
Okay.
from the very beginning to the very end. And there are about a dozen steps to it. So you're talking about permitting, you're talking about a relationship with utilities, you're talking about a traffic study to see where things belong, where they'll lay out best.
Wow, that
You're
could take
talking-
some time. No traffic study.
Yeah, it's not as horrific as it might be.
Good.
There's an engineering study taking a look at the electricity, what you have, what you need, what has to be moved around. There is certainly the procurement of the hardware and the software. There's the construction that needs to be done. There is the electrical work that needs to be done, potentially financing the equipment and the hardware and the whole installation.
Really?
Monitoring and maintaining the equipment, doing the billing and collection. And, then there are rebates to consider. There are tax credits to consider. And at the end of the road, carbon credits to consider.
What if you go through all that effort and they're not in a good spot?
You'd have a real problem.
Okay.
And that's really why it's important to do it the right way.
To have somebody like you do a study.
Yeah, exactly.
Next thing you know, it's
Exactly.
maybe not in the most prime spot.
Exactly. And let me share a real quick story with you. We went in with a pre-construction agreement in a particular facility that was being set up for a logistics center. And the conduit was being laid out in the building according to the architect's plans.
Okay.
But the architect really did not know a lot about our industry.
So he's doing things according to what he knows, but not your specific needs.
Precisely, okay? And when we went in there and we looked at it, we turned some things around and saved the owner, I don't remember if it was 4,000 or 6,000 linear feet of conduit. Now, when you think about that, that adds up. It's not just pennies a foot, because the point is, if that's getting buried in concrete, then you're talking about trenching. Then you're talking about a lot of work that really needs to be looked at and redone.
And more physical pipe that's could be a problem later on.
Absolutely.
Unnecessary.
Absolutely. Sure. So it's really important that you know what you're doing. This is not work for amateurs. It really is not. Now, you asked about a building owner. Well,
yes.
Oftentimes building owners will say, okay, help us to get the equipment, then I'll have my electrician put it in.
Right, who has no idea.
But the electrician has no idea. Now, look, I shouldn't say that. There are plenty of great electricians who know what they're doing and know how this should lay out, whether or not they've ever done a charging station before. Okay? But more often than not, they don't have the experience. And so it makes a lot of sense to work with someone who does. Now, another thing that I should bring up.
So I would say, so you're acting like a project manager besides kind of laying out the whole deal. You're kind of playing the
managing, but
middleman.
we're actually fulfilling everything. It's all in-house. Everything we're doing is in-house.
So an owner has to invest, or is there different kinds of deals? How does it work?
There are different ways of going about this.
What's the best way? What kind of deal do you like the best? What works best for the landowner?
From my perspective, I'm happy to go in and do everything that I've just described to you for the owner, and either collect a check or set up a lease.
Okay, gotcha. So they can buy it, they own it, and you're managing it.
And yeah, but there are other advantages because they get the tax depreciation.
Tax depreciation.
Okay, they can depreciate that equipment. There are rebates that come back to them, and the big and there are also tax incentives for doing it. I mean, as an example, the feds currently give a 30% tax credit up to $100,000 max, which means that if you spend $100,000, you're getting a $30,000 tax credit. That's the largest tax credit.
Wow, that's really nice.
New York State does the same thing for $5,000 per site.
Okay.
So you can start out, for argument's sake, with $35,000 tax credit against a $100,000 bill. But the cherry on top are the carbon credits.
The carbon credits.
Well, we talk about going green.
Okay,
we talk
so
about
that business is
decarbonization.
saving carbon credits, which is available. Is money available for operating that way?
That's correct. It's basically a commodity that end of year can be sold, traded, cashed in, whatever. Okay.
What do you mean? How does it work? Tell us how that works. I'm not sure if the audience of the building owners know how to cash in on those
Well,
those credits?
it's an interesting concept. Started out on the West Coast. It's moving east. There are banks that actually will hold that for you. There are companies that will hold it for you.
Carbon credits.
Carbon
Get the heck
credit.
outta here,
But
really?
here's what's really going on. There's a calculation that's done that basically looks at how much carbon dioxide is being spewed into the environment from the burning of gasoline as compared to how much is not being spewed into the environment because the vehicles are being charged electrically.
Here
And
in
it's
America,
all-
not
that's-
globally, because
well-
other countries they don't hear. I mean, that pollution will come to the United States, won't it?
Hold on a second, my friend. Hold on a second. This is happening around the globe.
Every
There are other countries that are doing far more than we are.
Who's
in
leading
US.
the world in EVs?
You
if
know,
not the
I
U.S.?
knew you were. I knew you were going to ask me this, and I literally wanted to stack up the numbers. So, the countries with the most EVs per capita, Norway. This is as of December of 21. This is December.
Norway.
Norway, 81. Yep, 81 per 81 top 10. Yep.
Right.
They're
Okay.
at 81. Iceland is 36.
Oh, the score of 81
Yeah.
in that direction.
The
Now,
United
is that green?
States-
Is that green or EV?
It's EV. It's EV. United States is 5.2.
Compared to no, oh my gosh.
Yeah. So what's happening is that there's some countries that are way ahead of us.
Now Norway has a big number of charging stations. I think
Big
you were
number of
telling me?
charging stations, big number of EVs. China has a big number of EVs, but then again, they've got a huge population. So
Oh, compared to Norway, there's so many more people.
Of course,
they
doesn't
could have
matter.
double the EVs, but
Right.
because the population.
Right.
Oh, that's interesting.
Right.
So where's China in your?
Oh,
is it above the U.S.?
largest EV market in the world, mainly due to the size of the country, 2.7 million EVs in China.
Really?
And,
okay.
well, but look at the population.
Sure, sure. And how many in Norway? Do you have that stat?
That's
That's interesting.
I thought I did. 18.9 per people per electric vehicle.
18.9.
People per electric vehicle.
Oh, that sounds like an interesting statistic. I wonder
And-
how the U.S. compares to that one.
Hang on. And 75% of the new car sales in Norway are plug-in vehicles in 2020.
75% of new
Right.
purchases?
And we're at about 5%. We're at about 5%.
Wow.
Growing every day because we see it.
Wow. But I bet you Norway is the size of Nassau County.
And that's, I'm sure.
Right, Nassau County alone has 1.3 million residents. Think
So-
about it, that's incredible.
Yeah, I understand. So, but the rest of the world is really doing very, very well, and probably more than we are.
So you got Norway. Who's next on your list?
Iceland.
Iceland.
Go figure that. 36.8.
Oh my gosh!
I don't understand
All right,
that.
so
I don't understand
Norway,
that.
Iceland. Who else?
Sweden at 20.6.
Sweden. Well, the Swedes are always,
Right. Netherlands at 10.6. Germany at 8.5.
of course, the Germans. Got to
Well,
count on those Germans.
Well, look, Volkswagen is doing a big job there.
Volkswagen, sure.
Okay. Volkswagen is doing a very big job. As a matter of fact, Volkswagen will probably be number one in the not too distant future. They're
Well, that
producing
brings to
a
me an
lot of
interesting
EVs.
question. So in Norway, you could probably drive from one end of the country to the other. Can you drive to California from New York today in an EV?
Sure, you can. You just got to plan it. You
But what if you're stuck in the middle of nowhere?
No. Listen to me.
Yes.
You got to plan it. And I will tell you my own experience, which fascinated me. I'm a new EV driver.
Okay. And what'd you get?
I got a BMW.
A
And
BMW EV, yes.
and
that's
it was
beautiful.
not what I planned. It was not what I planned.
You were probably trying to get a Tesla originally? Was
No, I wasn't even interested in that. I don't like the Tesla.
Yeah, I agree.
It's just not my taste.
Yeah.
So I placed an order for a Rivian. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Rivian? No, I haven't seen it.
Rivian is a manufacturer that is they've got pickup trucks, they've got SUVs, and they've got minivans that are going the way of Amazon by huge numbers.
Oh, that's sick.
So the problem, as I see it, and I may be misreading it completely, I don't know, I'm not an expert in Rivian. The problem, as I believe, is that they're focused on the big dollars. I'm guessing.
Okay.
I'm guessing. And, look, if that were my business, I'd probably do the same thing.
Sure, go for the big shots.
But either which way, the point is I put down a deposit in December, and they still can't tell me when I'm going to take delivery.
Okay.
And first they said to me by Q2 of this year, well, that's come and gone.
Yes.
And then they said Q3, maybe Q4. They said, but we're not sure. Maybe 2023. And the problem that I had, quite frankly, was that the lease on my car was up 3 weeks ago. So I had to make a decision. I either had to buy what I had, buy it off lease, and run it until my Rivian was delivered, and then try and trade it in, or try and resell it, or whatever.
Which car did you get? Which BMW did you get?
I got the i4 M50.
i4 M50,
which it's a model that just came out in 22.
Wow.
And again, I wasn't planning on this. And quite frankly, it's a sick vehicle. It's crazy, but I'm having fun with it. It's just not what I expected to be doing.
Okay.
Obviously it hit my pocketbook in a way that I wasn't really prepared for, but such is life. I mean, I was stuck. I had to do something.
Right.
As a matter of fact, when I went to buy my car off that lease, I looked around at the prices for resale.
Yes.
And they say the used car market is really great.
Booming, right.
Not in the luxury area.
Oh, really?
So the numbers that I was seeing were less than what I was going to pay the dealership to take it out of the dealership.
Okay, got it.
So I'd be a loser the moment I did that transaction.
Wow.
And so I went into the BMW dealership, and I sat and I spoke with the sales guy. He says, I can deliver probably first week in January. I said, okay, it doesn't really change things very much for me.
January of 2023.
January 23. And then he comes back and he says to me, but I've got one here that it's not the color you want, but someone ordered it and they backed away from it.
What color did you want?
I wanted a black one. I wanted a black one. I owned an old BMW back in I think it was 87. I had a great one that I bought, and it was black with a red interior, and there was a black one with a red interior on the floor, and I said, that's what I really would like to have. So the guy says to me, it's not the color you want. I have one in white, but you can have it tomorrow.
What? And
it became a no-brainer.
White out exterior with red
interior.
Yeah. Oh my gosh!
And that caused a screamer. I love it.
So
I'm having fun with
I got to tell you, I got to ask you questions because that's a hot looking car.
But we must talk about miles. Go ahead.
Yes, and I was going to go there. There's a lot of conversation about how you're charging. What's been your experience on how much juice you're getting out of the car? I saw a documentary yesterday where they're saying, depending on the car, is how many miles you get per kilowatt per car. How does that stack up to the rest?
Well, there are definitely a lot of variables. The car is certainly a variable. The battery size is a variable. The driver is a variable. Okay? I mean, if you're driving a gas guzzler and you've got your pedal to the metal all the time, your mileage is not going to be particularly terrific. You know that.
Good point.
Right? So the driver is definitely a variable. The weather is a variable on EVs.
Really? Why? Hot or cold?
Because in the winter, and I haven't had the winter experience yet.
Yes.
I've been told this. But in the winter, a cold battery does not perform as well.
Really?
So
you mean speed-wise, or it's not charging the same?
It's not going to hold the charges. It's not going to hold the same charge. You're not going to get the same mileage. Again, this is second, third hand. I haven't had the experience, but I will tell you this: when I drove the car out of the showroom, the gauge said that I was 100% charged.
Okay.
And it also said that I had a range of 271 miles.
Pretty good. Okay.
Okay. Now, I had to travel from Northport to Stamford, Connecticut, and do a little moving around up there on Thursday, up and back and whatever. Total round trip of about 175 miles.
Okay. You got a little bit left there. About 100 miles.
Yeah, so they say, okay. Now, I filled the battery to 100% the night before, knowing that I had this trip. and it was something I had to do, family matter, and in the drive, or I should say, on my way back. Well, by the time I got home, end of 175 miles, my battery said I still had 48% capacity and a range of about 145, 147 miles.
So how did that happen? Was charging while you were driving?
To some degree, yes.
Oh, I didn't
realize.
realize.
There is some regeneration. That's for sure. As a matter of fact, I was fascinated by watching my range increase rather than decrease at certain points.
Does that happen to all EVs or just the BMW? How does that work?
I'm sure it's fairly common. It's not just mine.
The alternator or something is recharging the battery
it's
while
the
you drive?
way it is a recharging that goes on of the system. Some brakes formulate that. But the point is that what it was doing was actually increasing my mileage.
Really?
My available range. So I was really impressed with that. And quite frankly, I got many more miles than I anticipated getting. Now, again, I'm a new EV driver. And like everyone else who talked about it, it's a new vehicle. And I've got the same range anxiety as everybody else has spoken about.
Yes.
But I learned a lesson, and that is that there can be more to it than you're really hearing, which is exactly what my experience was all about. But I want to come back to your original question, which was, can you go cross country?
Yes. Can you make it from?
And the answer to that is yes. The issue is this: right now, you got to plan it. You have to think about what you're doing. You have to plan it. There are
we used to do back
stations.
in the day before computers. You get your MapQuest out,
right,
and you plan out your trip of where you're going to stop.
Right. Or look, I remember the old days with AAA where you had the strip maps.
Yes,
right?
Exactly.
And you'd flip your strip maps.
Yeah.
So this is really very much the same thing, right?
So to plan your stops around the EV stations.
Yeah, plan your stops.
Take pictures, hang out. Okay.
Now I'll tell you this. What is it that's holding this industry back?
Yes.
One of the things is obviously battery size.
Battery size.
So there are some vehicles out there right now that can give you 500-600 miles. You'll pay a premium for them, a big premium for them.
Can you upgrade your car to a better battery, better mileage?
Not that I'm aware of. I'm sure that sometime down the road, pardon the pun, that will be a possibility.
Interesting.
But not that I'm aware of at this point in time. However, I told you things are changing every day. The batteries are getting better every day.
Right.
There are people who are predicting that at some point in time, instead of doing a charge on a cross-country tractor trailer, they'll just swap out batteries. Now, that may or may not happen. I don't know. I don't know. But is it possible? I'm sure.
That's a great idea. Imagine you're pulling up and they could just do a battery swap. I mean, that would take... But then again, I mean, if you pull up to some of these gas stations, remote areas, I don't know if you want those guys near your car.
I'm not sure about that.
Like some of these hillbilly areas, they're going to swap a battery, I don't know.
Well, look, I wouldn't want to point fingers at any one part of the population another.
Of course.
But more than that, how do you know that you're getting a quality battery?
Well,
how do you know that you're not getting something that's going to explode on you, 10 miles out?
We're driving through the middle of Arizona, and some guy who's got a hut, is at a gas station. Is he going to be a reliable battery swapper?
You don't know. You really don't know. You really don't know.
But that seems like a great concept to swap a battery.
And I'm sure that'll be a piece of it at some point in time.
You can charge for X or swap the battery for Y.
Potentially. It's funny. There are portable chargers. There are trucks that have chargers on them. One of the biggest jokes I saw was a Tesla that was flatbedded. Because it obviously ran out of a battery charge.
Right. It's being charged.
And the flatbed truck backed up to a charger so that the car could be charged on the flatbed. Look, I guess it happens, right? Yeah. I guess it happens. I would think, though, that if you're an EV driver, that you should be thinking about that. You should always be thinking about that. You should be thinking about your range.
Is there an answer for having mobile trucks that charges EVs? You know, I mean, vans with big batteries and they pull up to the side.
Is there a market for it?
Like mobile charging stations, if you will.
The answer to that is yes, they exist. I actually just read an article about that company called Lightning Motors.
Lightning Motors?
Yeah, they've got chargers in a trailer.
Oh, very nice.
Okay, so I mean, I'm sure that somebody's going to be out there on the road with that kind of a concept.
I mean, think about it. You go to a wedding upstate or something. You're at the portable bathroom and the portable charging stations for your EVs.
You know, that could very well be. You know, if we have our way, if we green energy, if we have our way,
yes,
we'll be dropping chargers in the ground all over the map.
Wow,
and that's really what we hope to do. You asked me about different models and
yes.
what works for the building owners and the shopping mall people and whatever else.
Yeah, different deals. Like, do they have to buy it? Is there a leasing model? Is there other options to engage in a deal?
There are a few. There are a few. So there are times when we will go in and scope out the project and do everything that I shared with you before. And we'll take a check at the end of the day, or we'll finance the installation, and that's it. And then we'll set up a maintenance agreement with them to maintain the equipment if they like, or if they can maintain it themselves. That's up to them. All right. The advantage to the business owner, again, they own it, so they depreciate it.
Okay. They've
got all the tax credits. They've got the carbon credits. They've got the revenue from the chargers. Remember, it's a moneymaker. It's a vending machine. Think of it as a bubblegum machine.
It's like an ATM in the corner or something like that.
It is a vending machine, okay? They're paying X, selling for Y. And the delta in between, some of it's profit, some of it's covering whatever expense they had for doing the project.
Sounds like a little bubble yum should come with that charge.
Maybe so. Maybe so. So that's one model. That's one model. Then we have.
So I've seen some chargers that have these big advertisements on.
Oh,
it.
Yeah.
Like I stand in front of it, I'm like, there's nothing here I want to see. Like, why is that there? Like for example, I'll get to the gas station 2:00 in the morning, and they're giving ads about mortgages. Like screaming at the gas station. I hate that.
Yeah,
how is that effective for anybody? You know.
To me, it's a turnoff. Okay, personally, it's a turnoff. But there are some companies that, as their model, they'll put a charger in the ground and basically offer free charging to make money on the revenue of the advertising.
So Stop and Shop or the grocery store that has one is
if you're seeing a screen,
advertising.
If you're seeing a screen with advertising on there,
yes.
the deal somehow is involving revenue for the marketing.
Okay.
Somehow that may
I don't
be
see those machines used a lot for some reason.
Well, I don't know. I don't know.
Is it bad placement?
I can't.
When you see that?
I can't answer that. I really can't answer that. You know, it could be bad placement. Okay, it could be. It could be the community. It could. You know, they might have picked the wrong demographic at the time. You need to look at zip codes when you start planting these stations. You need to look at the socioeconomics of the communities and see if there are EVs there or they're about to be EVs there. These things are important. You also need to look at where the placement of those chargers will be in a particular parking lot. And let me give you a perfect example.
Yeah.
We had a conversation with a real estate company that owns hundreds of properties across the country. And we wanted to put in, I don't know, about a half dozen fast chargers. And their concept was to put the chargers literally out at the curb, right along the street as people would pass by for high visibility.
Great
idea, okay? However, all of the stores in the shopping center were no less than 300 feet away.
Okay.
So imagine a young mom with a couple of kids in tow and a basket full of groceries.
Yes.
Now having to
traverse
that distance with the kids, with the groceries, et cetera, just to get back to the charger. Mm-hmm. It's not practical.
Got it. It's not logical.
Now, and there's another piece of it. And, you know, when I said to you, part of what we do is the traffic study and the engineering study.
You're making sure it makes sense. Otherwise, it's a big waste of money.
Of course. You know, the further away you go from the power source, the more expensive the project. Because you've got to do trenching. You've got to drop cable. You got to put conduit in the ground. You got to do all the
So
preparation.
are those part of the green initiative in the way you're laying this out?
Of course.
I got to assume this is a green initiative, the way you're laying it out, or what else gets baked into this big green conversation?
It's all tied together. Now, one of our latest revelations, I would say, is not just having the chargers in the ground and producing a product for the consumer who wants to charge their vehicle, but finding ways of providing that electricity either at very, very low cost or as being totally off the grid.
Off the grid
And
charging.
so
yes.
we have looked at a number of different possibilities. We've looked at it from the perspective of backup batteries, where we could buy our electricity inexpensively overnight and then dispense it during the day. We've looked at it from the perspective
Charge your own batteries and dispense it to those cars
Right.
that you own.
Right.
Interesting.
We've looked at it from the perspective of using fuel cells, either driven by natural gas or hydrogen.
Got it.
All right, which is certainly cleaner than much of what happens, even though neither of those processes are really clean. And then, I mean, what could be the very best for us, and we're exploring this now, is trying to offset all of that with solar.
What bothers me a little bit, and I've talked about this with a number of people, so everybody feels good that they're plugging into, there's no more gas coming out of their personal vehicle, but manufacturing all the electricity still takes gas and coal, and the back end is still primarily not green.
Not all of it. Not all of it. That's the whole point. That's the whole point.
So how do you have truly off-grid EV stations?
Well,
with these batteries,
as
and
I just
solar,
no. As I just mentioned, one of the ways, as I said, that we're now exploring is seeing what it would take to be able to support our equipment with solar panels. How much would it really take to accomplish what we need to accomplish? And that's it's a calculation. It's work for the electrical engineer to figure that out. It's work for the solar companies to help us to figure that out. But if we could, perchance, without a huge canopy, be able to support a half a dozen chargers, as an example, in a lot.
Does solar technology and EV stations have similarities? Is there something combined there that has a bigger effect?
Oh, one can feed the other.
Interesting.
Think about it.
Well, I was experimenting with this Goal Zero product. So a friend of mine, David, has got me involved with Goal Zero. And I have this perception with about $15,000 to $16,000 worth of Goal Zero equipment, backup batteries, and solar things, I can live off the grid and not require PSE&G. It sounds incredible that I could perceivably do that today.
Sure.
So is that what you're perceiving is the future of EV stations too?
Well, we've seen some examples of it. We have seen some examples of it. I've seen examples of it demonstrated in Europe. Shell Oil is one that has been involved with some facilities where they literally they look like carports. They look like there's a canopy over the charging stations that basically will absorb the rays of the sun, convert it to power, and power the chargers. So the question becomes, is there enough? Okay, or how large a canopy do you need to accomplish what you want to accomplish? And that's a calculation that we're looking at.
Interesting. So, other countries, what are they doing with solar?
There's a lot of it. There's a lot of it.
And Elon Musk is involved, right, with solar panels.
He's got a business that's, I believe, losing money. But my understanding is that I know that he's got his own branded solar panels and battery packs. I think call them wall packs or something like that. That you'll see, hanging on the side of somebody's house. That basically is a collector for all of the electricity that's generated by the solar panels.
Interesting.
Whether or not that continues, I don't really know.
Interesting. It's like saving juice to be able to redistribute it.
Right. Or saving it to use it when you need it. Right? Or saving it to, using it when you need it. I mean, perfect example, as I said, I finally have an EV. I'm looking to put a charger in my garage. All right? Now, obviously,
something personal use.
Something for my personal use. How am I going to power that? Initially, it'll be off the grid because I really don't have an option. I don't have solar on my home.
Let me ask you a quick question. What is the difference between like a battery where you could save stuff and the fuel cell technology you had mentioned earlier?
Batteries are insanely expensive. Insanely expensive. And they're very, very large.
And what's the difference between a fuel cell and one of these
The
batteries?
fuel cell is not cheap, but it's certainly far more compact.
It's a smaller device.
It's a smaller device, right?
And why is it called a fuel cell? Because
It's basically what it's doing is it's generating electricity by utilizing either natural gas or hydrogen.
So you load it with natural gas as opposed to a battery that's saving stuff. Got it.
Right.
Got it.
And they're pretty efficient. They're really pretty efficient. I mean,
And you can deliver any option? It sounds like you said you work with multiple vendors at the...
Sure.
So you could do a large battery for a very large facility, a fuel cell for different cases.
I will tell you that our experience with large batteries is really very limited. The costs are prohibitive. They're really prohibitive.
Got it.
And we've talked to a couple of. This is our early stage development. We've talked with a couple of manufacturers. We've got one that was talking about doing a pilot with us that hasn't quite materialized yet. So I'm not counting on that battery as being the solution, but the more I think about the application of solar, and we have a solar partner here on the island. It makes a lot of sense. It really makes a lot of sense. So the question is whether or not the math works out, and that's really a matter of.
But you're talking about potentially off the grid EV charging stations.
That's right.
I mean, how sick is that?
That's great. It's absolutely great.
I mean, if you're worried about green technology and lowering your carbon footprint, that's it.
That's net zero.
So
that is literally net zero.
People have thoughts that they're doing it in America. Other countries don't care about the environment. You don't agree with that, right?
No, I don't. Because when I read the literature and I see how much is going on in so many other countries where they are so far advanced in terms of numbers of EVs per capita, numbers of charges per capita, this is worldwide.
So you're definitely seeing a global carbon footprint reduction, not like what you're hearing in the news that only America cares.
No, I really believe. Look, I can't account for the carbon footprint reduction globally. I can tell you that there's obviously a dramatic effort being made in many countries by virtue of the number of EVs that are out there and the numbers of chargers that are out there. Remember, we haven't accounted for how those chargers are getting fueled.
Right.
So if somebody's got a diesel generator sitting out back fueling those things, they're not really helping the environment.
Good point.
Right?
Good point.
So I don't know that. I can't. I don't want.
There's still a lot of gray area.
I don't want to give you information that I'm making up.
Gotcha.
That would be foolish.
Let me jump into some of our cyber and tech news, which is related right to this. Really interesting segue, actually. Let me jump right into our cyber news here. One moment. So take a look at this, my friend. Hackers are targeting EV charging stations.
Ouch.
Well, I guess it's pretty popular at this point, right? That hackers were bound to get there, right?
I'm sure.
So, but you said something very interesting. Now, on this particular photo, they're using a credit card, which, skimmers and whatnot. But you said there's some EV charge stations that don't have credit cards.
Yeah, there's an interesting dilemma, and part of it is because of the antiquity of some of the documentation that's used by the state when talking about rebates and talking about chargers that would qualify for rebates.
Okay.
So, as an example, according to NYSERDA, which is the New York State agency, a charger has to have the ability to take a credit card for payment with some universal method, okay? And if it doesn't have that, it could be disqualified as a reimbursable or rebatable type device. Now, there's an answer for that, There is an answer for that. And the answer to that really is that if you've got a telephone number on there where someone can actually make a phone call to the charging company, which is obviously going into
Like a hotline number.
a hotline, right. That charge can take place without that credit card.
Interesting.
The problem, as I see it, is that when you've got a credit card swipe, you're a sitting duck for vulnerability.
Sure, those skimmers are crazy.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. And so what we prefer to do, very honestly, is through a QR code.
Beautiful.
And or we actually have one client who insisted upon key fobs for their employees.
Yeah.
So that they know that only their people can use those chargers. And we can expand that, of course. I mean, we can.
Wow, so you could put proprietary stuff per bank of people. Very nice.
Absolutely.
Oh.
Absolutely.
Only that fleet of cars can use those stations. Oh, that's really sophisticated.
Only the employees of that particular
company
using their company vehicles can use those chargers.
Oh man, that's really good. Actually,
okay,
that has a lot of value.
So you can really segment that out. Of course,
yeah,
you can segment it out.
So
sure.
I just want to make a note on that article. It said that these vulnerabilities in these stations were found by white hat hackers. Now, just want to point out, a white hat hacker is considered somebody like me who's gone in there, who knows how to break the code, but is telling everybody about it because they don't want bad stuff to happen. But when a black hat hacker gets in there, he's looking to steal stuff.
Right.
You will see, and in my opinion, the evolution of EVs will be sprued with white hat hackers who want this to happen and will ultimately prevent bad stuff from going on. I think the white hat hackers, the removal of credit cards, and all the security stuff should make this stuff roll out in the next 2-3 years like wildfire.
We would hope.
Right?
We would hope.
And you said when you got your vehicle, it came with like a year or two worth of charging anyway.
BMW gave me 2 years of free charging with Electrify America.
So are they
one
everywhere?
of my competitors?
Okay, so but are there's charger stations everywhere?
Well, I wouldn't say everywhere, but they've got a fair number out there. What's really interesting is that there are a bunch of apps that you can put onto your phone that'll tell you where chargers are.
Sure, I saw that.
There's a map in my car on my
Tesla
GPS
screen. Sure,
it'll tell me where the chargers are that will accommodate my vehicle. They'll give me all of the brands as well if I want it. I mean, it's basically a bunch of toggle switches on my phone that will filter out what I want and what I don't want.
So I got to ask you a crazy question. All right. So a friend of mine asked that. Why can't we tow a charging station or solar panels on like a U-Haul behind your EV?
Well,
is that a possibility? Imagine you could drive forever.
Yeah, the answer to that is you probably could. I mean, it's kind of far-fetched.
Really?
Well,
to pull a canopy with solar panels and a charger from a Tesla? I mean, it could pull a load.
Of course it can pull a load, but let me give you a perfect example as to why they probably wouldn't even think about something like that. My car does not have run-flat tires.
Oh, okay.
I wanted run-flat tires. And I said, why can't I have run-flat tires? And they said, because their engineers figured out that a run-flat tire, or 4 run-flat tires rather, collectively will weigh about 20 pounds more than the tires that they put on my car.
20 pounds more?
And so what they're looking at is the weight that's thrown into the vehicle. Now, bear in mind that most electric vehicles, most of your electric vehicle is battery. The whole sled is battery. And it's a lot of weight.
The entire underbelly is one huge battery.
Right. And so...
Now, what about disposal? If those batteries go bad, I mean, is that leaving toxic waste like everywhere?
They're being repurposed. They're not just being disposed of, they're being repurposed. And so they'll take a battery that goes bad in a car and they'll use it for something else that is not as vulnerable to whatever. Now,
so it's not wasted. It still has value.
It still has value. Also, bear in mind, though, that if you have an accident in an electric vehicle, 9 times out of 10, they're pulling the battery.
If you have an accident in an electric vehicle, they pull the battery out? Why?
What if it was damaged? They don't know.
Could they explode? I mean, do batteries explode? Like, what's the?
There were a whole bunch of stories about Teslas catching on fire, in the last few years, and they're really giving a bad rap. They weren't
Really?
talking about the numbers of gasoline engine vehicles that were also catching on fire. They were just making a point of unfortunately focusing on the EVs because it was newsworthy.
It was newsworthy.
Can it explode? Anything can explode, I'm sure. I don't think there's anything that's totally fireproof and explosion proof. But what I'm saying to you is that when an EV is in more than just a slight touch of an accident, many of them will have their batteries replaced.
So the batteries go back to the factory, get remanufactured, and put back out, not put into a waste site.
No, they get put out for something else.
Really? So let me go to my next news segment, which I find really interesting. Now, you and I have actually talked about this, and I don't know if you saw what I saw in it. I have this vision about lined up e-vehicles, one behind the other. Right? So everyone's got EV vehicles, and I thought that a non-human or machine pulling the plug in and out from vehicle to vehicle could really automate the entire thing.
Sure.
Now, take a look at what happened. So here's a company. Okay.
Yeah, I saw this.
Take a look at that. That's the robot taxi fleet.
Yep.
So this robot taxi fleet is going to actually pull the plug out of the charger into the car back and forth, and the cars keep moving, and no one's got to be involved. How sick is that, Mark?
I've seen this on TV. It was actually out about a year ago. They were showing couples going out in a taxi ride with a driverless taxi.
Yes.
A driverless taxi, and I was fascinated by it. I'm not sure of how safe it is. Okay, I question that. I mean, I question the safety of every taxi cab, let alone every driver. People are no longer focused on what they should be focused on.
True.
When you're talking about, the temptation, in any relatively new vehicle,
Yes.
it's covered with screens.
Yes.
And the distractibility of the driver is really challenged. Right? It's so easy to get caught up in looking at a screen rather than looking at the road. So, that said, I look at the robotics that they're talking about with this. I would look for the safety issues, and I don't.
To me, in my personal opinion, I find that the robotic arm or the Boston Dynamics robot dog or something will be deployed with these stations to put the thing in and out of the car, and that has probably a huge advantage, like a robot gas station attendant.
Of course, I fully agree with you, and yet what's really interesting, we were talking with a company that has a fleet of about 2,200 vehicles. Happens to be a bus company.
2,200 vehicles.
2,200 buses. And the ownership was of the mindset that they want every one of their drivers to park their vehicle, to plug it in for a charge, and for no one to touch that vehicle until the following morning when the driver would come back. He would unplug the charger and go and do his route.
Okay, got it.
Now, when you think about the expense of the charging equipment, one might think, would it make more sense to be able to do multiple charges, multiple vehicles, I should say, with one charger throughout the course of the night by having somebody there
Right, swapping
the
the
vehicle,
cars. Exactly.
to move
Yes,
the vehicle,
yes.
okay? Which obviously jumps right into this model that you're talking about, because you're eliminating that person, if you will, by having the robot go and do exactly what you're talking about.
Wow.
Okay? So
I love it.
it's not, you're not talking about Mission Impossible, but conceptually it would make a lot of sense.
But
right?
look at it this way. So imagine all the people living in an apartment that park on the street and parking lots, this mobile charging device passing by and the robotic arm charging it and putting it back, and it shows you on your iPhone you charged. How sick would that be?
I mean, I don't see that happening on streets. I'd see it happening in a garage. I'd see it happening in a parking lot. I'd see it happening.
But EVs are restricted to apartment owners. Think about that.
I understand that. But what I'm talking about is someone is going to own that robot, and someone's going to be sure that it's not appropriated by somebody who doesn't
Right,
own it,
exactly.
right? Somebody's going to own that robot, and somebody's going to want to have the space confined within which it's going to be able to roam. And so if you think of a fleet of vehicles within a garage, or a fleet of vehicles within a parking lot, it makes a lot of sense if that can be
Wow,
deployed.
the thing could roam around the parking lot and plug in everywhere.
Precisely.
And you just get a text, the robot dog took care of it.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's really
Yeah,
beautiful.
yeah. Look, is it doable? I'm sure it's doable. Is it here today? Probably not. Are they working on it?
Why the Boston
They're-
Dynamics robots are out and in use today? I mean,
they're saying it's there. I haven't seen it.
all right. So
Okay.
I will introduce you to my friend who's got the robot dogs,
Okay.
and I see a convergence there. I'm concerned about the rollout of EVs with the apartment people, Queens, the
Because?
5 boroughs. I don't see a logical way someone who lives in an apartment will be able to get through these problems. Your car's parked on the side. You got to get out to work. It just apartment owners seem to have a problem with this.
You're talking about with a
They
garage
park on
building
the
or
side
street?
of the street. Yeah, look at Astoria. How many millions of people park on the street, Mark?
Sure. Well,
It's a wealthy area too. That's not
the city is making quite a robust effort to put chargers out on the street. They're out.
You
there.
can't expect to have a charger
there.
next to wherever there's a meter.
No, you won't. But you will see more and more of them.
Does the
They are out
robot
there.
dog have to exist for the apartment owners to agree?
I guess the concern that I would have is seeing something like that out on the street.
Well, it's not going to have a machine gun. It's just going to charge your.
No, I understand.
Hopefully not.
Listen, I understand that. I'm talking about the security of the device. I'm talking about. I would think that if I were an investor, if I were putting my money into that robotic device, I'd want to see to it that it had a limited range.
Yes. Okay.
Where it's either tending to a fleet of vehicles inside of a parking lot.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a car rental company, a fleet of cars that are that belong to a municipality, that belong to whatever kind of a delivery service. They've got a whole bunch of last mile trucks, vans, etc. When we
in a
first
confined space.
in a confined
ultimately.
space.
Confined space where it's controllable.
Sure. Sure.
I'm looking for something that the general apartment owner in Queens, Kings County, Queens can perceivably use. I love Astoria. It's lined with cars.
Of course.
How do you get those people converted? I mean, those are the crazy gas and stuff, the emissions that come out of there. The carbon footprint is very large in those zones.
Well, because it's a high concentration. Very high concentration.
Solving that will have a big impact, I feel.
But you do have parking lots, okay? There are lots that are available. I've visited a whole bunch of them. I've actually had a conversation with a lot owner who owns 5 or 6 different lots, and he actually has, what the hell's the name of that car?
Yeah.
It's a rental car. It's a rental car company with it. They literally just drop the cars at his facility. It's not
like Enterprise.
It's a
something like
more
that.
modern name. I'm
All right,
having a
it's
senior moment. Either way, the point is that I know that they have a bunch of electric vehicles in their fleet, and I said to them, if you installed half a dozen or a dozen chargers in this place, you could then call up the company that's already paying you rent for those vehicles to be in your lot, right?
Queens
And
does not have
start-
those availabilities. You need something to drive down the street and charge his vehicles. You have 90 million
You're really
vehicles down
challenging this.
Stein.
Yeah, I hear you.
You know what? And it's cutting out the people who can't afford what you're
I
saying.
got it. I understand.
You
I
know?
understand.
And every city, not just New York,
Of
every
course.
city has this problem.
For sure. And look, someone will come up with the answer to that. I'm not sure I'm the guy. I'm not sure I'm the guy.
Yeah, yeah.
We've come up with a lot of different answers. I mean, you asked me about our different models before.
Yes.
And one that I didn't share with you, which is really kind of interesting, is where we'll plant the chargers in the ground and we'll own and operate them.
Tell me about the owner operator option.
It's something that we've kind of held for municipalities, but we're now utilizing that in shopping malls as well, where we will finance it ourselves. We'll place the chargers.
So no cost to the owner at all?
No, there's no cost to the owner.
Really?
There's no cost to the owner.
Okay.
And we'll give them a piece of the revenue. And what we're doing basically is we're helping them to green their facility, right? We're helping them to green their facility.
Yes.
We're providing a service. And, the retail guys figured out a long time ago, you plug a car into charge, the shopper is staying in that mall that much longer. And they're going to spend that much more money. And if they're spending money in your mall, you'll have a healthier mall. You'll have a more stable mall because you're not going to end up with vacancies because people aren't doing business. Now, conversely, there are other types of stores where they don't want you to sit in charge. Some of the big boxes, which will remain nameless, but the point is
they want you in and
out.
They
want you in and out. They want turnover, right? They want turnover. But when you're looking
Which is the places you want to stay for a while.
Yeah, of course.
Dunkin' Donuts, I'll hang out there for a half hour.
Of course. But when you think about it,
costing them money if I'm taking up that spot.
If you're taking that spot, that's right. It's costing them money. So there are some facilities, depending upon the facility, depending upon the stores, the caliber of the stores, whether or not they're prone to having people hang out for more than just 3 minutes and picking up a quick six-pack or whatever it is. The point is that they would like you to stay for a while. We're talking with casino owners, okay? We're talking with hotel owners.
Okay.
When your guests are coming in with an electric vehicle, they want a place to charge. And, the truth is that before long, if you're a hotel owner and you don't have charging stations, they'll look someplace else. So they stand to make money at the front of the house from their guests. They can also make money at the back of the house from their deliveries.
Every time I go on vacay, those chargers are always in use at a hotel.
Of course.
Absolutely. It makes perfect sense.
Of course.
Resort or something.
And they should have them.
Yeah.
They should have them.
Yeah.
So we talk to those folks. We talk to casino owners, hotels, hospitals, municipalities, shopping malls, sporting arenas. All these places make sense. They all make sense for us. For some,
I never thought about that. So you're telling me that the audience should be aware that it's logical to find that charging station in a place where they want you to stay longer, but the places where they want you in and out, where you probably want to hang out at that Starbucks or Dunkin' Donuts, it's not really in their business plan to kind of have you there for an excessive amount of time.
It's probably not to their advantage. However, I will tell you that there are a whole bunch of Starbucks that are now putting
that are not doing it anyway,
right?
But
so
don't they want
whatever rule you're going to set, somebody's going to break it.
Somebody's going to change it.
Okay,
anyway.
They're going to change it. They're definitely going to change it.
Good point.
They're definitely going to change it.
Just want to pull up your site here for a moment. So you've got your blog site, and if you take a look, you have regular stuff there going on. Should people go to your get-ny.com site and look at your blogs you're shooting out?
We try to put up current material. Some of this is already a little bit dated.
Okay.
But I will tell you, before I referenced tritium, and I told you about that. If you look right in the center of the screen, you just pushed.
Yes.
Right in the center of the screen.
Yes.
That's Tritium is the company that just opened up that manufacturing plant in Lebanon.
So you're talking about all this on your blog. This is a good place to kind of hang out and take a look here. Oh, that's very interesting. And electric vehicle revolution. Why are you calling it revolution? Because It is. You're in the middle of
course
a
it is.
revolution.
Of course it is. You know,
What's going to hold back the revolution?
economy for sure.
Okay.
Economy is definitely a factor. Certainly, you know, the chip shortage. It's impacting everything, as you know. The availability of vehicles. It's really hard to get an EV. It's hard to get a new car. The waits are forever.
The inventory, the supply shortage.
There's a terrible supply shortage. That's a piece of it. There are some people who really have terrible range anxiety and are afraid to make that leap. As a matter of fact, one of the things that I thought we were going to talk about, because I know you and I had chatted about this offline, was, well, why not hybrid? Why not the gas and the gasoline and battery?
Well, hold on. You know what? I'd love to do this again. Bring your partner. Let's elaborate on that.
That's fun.
Because you're opening up a conversation that, to me, makes a heck of a lot of sense. Wasn't hybrid the best answer? Why wouldn't you get a hybrid?
Because I wanted to get away from the fossil fuel.
You believe in the green energy.
I believe in the green energy. I really do. I told you that one of our unique points after we do everything that we do in planting charging stations is we put a tree in the ground. It's all about green. It's really about green. We're talking about the environment. And if you're running a hybrid, you're
halfway to green.
You're half a little. Well, you know where I'm going.
Gotcha.
So,
which is the name of your company? Green Energy. It's a bigger picture.
It is the bigger picture. It really is the bigger picture. And so we try to do everything that's pointed in the direction of green. All right. We've laid out a whole bunch of chargers out there. We're now looking at better ways of implementing them. Mm-hmm. At the moment, everything that we're doing is coming right off the grid. Mm-hmm. I hope that we can change that. But you have to start someplace. It's an evolution, really. It's not really a revolution.
It's an evolution.
We're getting there slowly. It's taking time. I mean, look at how long it took. Look at how long it took before you start to see competition for Elon Musk.
Yeah. That's true.
Right? Think about that. The guy's brilliant. He's crazy, but he's brilliant.
Yeah.
All right?
Yeah.
He's brilliant. And he put out his vehicle, an all-electric vehicle, and he put it out in a way that you could only charge your Tesla on his charging station. Okay, well, that's a captive audience, don't you think? Okay? And then further than that, if you have an EV that's not a Tesla,
really?
You can't come to my charger because it's not going to fit your car.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
So what's happening now?
I thought Tesla chargers were compatible. No, it's proprietary?
No.
Man.
So what's finally happening is that as the new vehicles are rolling off the line, they're sent out with adapters. So they've got adapters that will fit a whole bunch of other chargers.
Got it.
Our chargers will charge anything.
Got it.
His chargers will charge Teslas.
I got it.
Okay. And
so think about the robot dog now. I mean, even more reason. You got the adapter, you got the thing.
Well,
listen,
I can tell you, very complicated because your robot dog is going to have to carry a tool belt.
Well, no, I mean, but compared to like if it was my wife charging, let the robot dog take care of it. You know what I mean?
Okay.
I wouldn't want some people to put adapters or switches on stuff. Think about it. It could get, because of proprietary rollout, it could have benefit to have a machine dealing with those adapters.
I don't doubt it. I don't doubt it. And what I'm saying to you is that until it's universal,
you got it, man.
Until it's universal, you've got a real problem. Okay? Now, we can find workarounds. All right? We know, as an example, that one of our chargers, that we have chargers out in Southampton Village, as an example. One of our chargers will not charge a Tesla Model S. Okay? Why? Because of the adapter. Now, there is an adapter that fits it. It's about $500.
That's not all right.
And I'm okay with buying one. I'm not okay with buying one and having somebody steal it from me.
Yes.
So What I need to do is figure out how to put it on there in a way that it can't be taken.
The robot dog has the adapters built into his
There
snout.
you go.
Come on, we're inventing stuff right here, guys.
I got it.
But that's the evolution. That's the
Sure.
revolution, and you're on top of that.
It's growing. It's growing. It's morphing every day. We learn
what
different strategies
percentage do
every
you
day.
see of rollout of charging stations compared to people ready to buy the EV? You know, like, and what's the right percentage? I think where you said 18 EVs to every charger or some kind of calculation.
Yeah,
Is that a good thing to use in the U.S.?
Well, the problem right now is that you don't have the large numbers of EVs that you'll find by comparison to some of the European countries. Okay, there are more and more every day. I mean, I'm out on the road. I'm so aware of them at this point in time.
Yeah, you're constantly looking.
I'm constantly looking at them, so I see them. I know they're there.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a period of time where I'm saying to myself, what in heaven's name am I doing on the Long Island Expressway with some guy tooling along in a van in the HOV lane? And then I said to me, stupid me, it's an electric vehicle.
You're allowed,
right?
Yes.
But the numbers of vehicles are growing. They are definitely growing. The incentives have improved. Certainly the recent legislation that's been signed provides all kinds of advantages. There's some hooks in it too. You got to be careful about what you're doing. In terms, some of them have to be 50% made in the U.S., or the battery's going to be made in the U.S., or
that's why you need
some such combination of that. I'm talking about for the cars and trucks. But at the very same time, there are lots of really great incentives out there that should make people want to think about doing this. Now, I also got to tell you something. When I fill up my car at the dispenser, the number that pops up is about $12, $13.
Okay.
Compare that to the $45 that I was spending at the gas pump. Now, true, gasoline is high right now.
Yes.
Okay, but even if gasoline is a bit lower than it is, you're still talking about more than twice the cost of the electric vehicle.
So is it logical to say that if you do mostly local driving, you could be totally fine with an EV, and if you do long distance driving, you rent a truck or a van for the day or two?
If you do it depends upon how you define long distance driving. I told you I did 175 miles in one day, no problem.
Right, like
And
a 500-mile trip or something. You'll rent a vehicle and leave your EV at home.
Or a 500-mile trip, you're going to plan it out, and you're going to make a stop someplace halfway. And quite frankly, who drives for 500 miles without a stop anyway?
That's true.
Think about it.
Well, I saw one of those camping.
I'm an old guy. I can't drive more than X amount of miles without having to make a stop.
So they have a bathroom for the guys when you're driving, but when the car's shaking, it's hard to drive and pee into that little thing.
You can't do that. You can't do that. But
what I'm saying, over yourself.
But seriously, who drives 500 miles without a stop?
Good point.
Right? Electric or not. There were devices. The Mercedes I just turned in, it had that shaking coffee cup that would tell you to stop and take a rest. Right? It's right on the dash. It was an electronic signal telling you to stop and take a rest.
Yes. Your iPhone tells you even that.
Of course. Nobody's driving 500 miles without a stop.
So in Europe, it's amazing. So we were in Europe with the kids right before COVID. And in Europe, people don't realize some of the gas stations have the most delicious sandwiches you can get. So we stop at the gas stations, get the delicious sandwiches, hang out for 10, 15 minutes. It seems natural there. Maybe the key is more delicious sandwiches at gas stations in America?
Well, I don't know how well it mixes with a gas station, but certainly with an EV charger, it's a lot cleaner.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
Right? But the
point is the gas station becomes an event.
Think of it this way. You go into any gas station right now that's got a C-store or a convenience store. Go in and ask the owner, where does he make his money? He's not making it from the pump.
From the concessions?
He's making more money in his C-store than he is from the gasoline he's selling.
Interesting.
Okay?
That Snapple will bring more profit than the gas.
That's right. He's making more money in the C-store, and if he's selling lottery tickets, all the better. Right? But think about it.
Interesting.
Think
I didn't
about that.
realize that.
The C stores are major profit centers, all right? So when we've talked about doing things like setting up a charging pod, some kind of a charger island with 8 or 10 fast chargers or whatever, where people are going to have to sit for 10 or 15 minutes or 20 minutes to charge their vehicle.
Yeah.
And instead of watching that clown on the TV screen at the gas station who's trying to sell you insurance in the middle of the night, which I've always hated, okay? Think about that. If you had a food truck on site,
yeah.
right? If you had a food truck on site, if you had a soft ice cream vendor on site, if you had a hot dog stand on site, if you had whatever kind of foodstuffs would make sense in a particular venue. Doesn't that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Right?
So
you want to get out, you want to stretch your legs.
Can bring these small businesses alive.
Of course.
I didn't even consider that.
Of course.
The EV stations could be the advent of all those beautiful halal food trucks and the hot dog trucks. I'm sorry, there's a halal food truck near the Walmart on Hempstead Turnpike. I mean, I'm salivating just thinking about it. I don't know if you know those guys.
No,
really
you know,
good.
if you go down, I guess it's right along the river, downtown Brooklyn. Actually, it's in Queens. There's a whole area of food trucks.
Oh, yes.
And they line up one after the next after the next after the next after. I mean, it's like a League of All Nations. You could eat any kind of food you want from those trucks. So, Mike,
Owning a food truck is a decent business, man.
I'm not saying it's bad. What I'm saying to you, it's one of the necessities of a charging station hub.
I love that concept. I got to tell you.
I mean, there's got to be some place for people to get out of their vehicle, because minimum they're going to be there 20 minutes.
So,
right?
so you ever drive the car, you're reading the newspaper, you're eating a sandwich, maybe you're smoking a butt at the same time and trying to drive? I guess now that's possible in the EV, right? With the automatic driving.
Yeah, it is. I don't know how much I would do that. I mean, you know.
I do that in my regular car.
A lot of people do. Well, you know, what used to crack me up is I drive on the Long Island Expressway and I see these women holding up the mirror and doing the makeup while they're driving.
Yeah, I know, right? They're doing the makeup look right there.
Scare the living bejesus out of me. But the point is, nowadays you practically can.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, Tesla, there's a guy who's been advertising on TV for the last couple of weeks about how terrible the self-driving software is, and Congress should get it out of those cars.
Yeah, yeah.
Whether or not he's right, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I will tell you that I have self-driving capacity, automated driving capacity in my car. However, first of all, it's new to me, so I'm not really comfortable with it yet.
Got it. Yeah.
All right? But when I tried it, when I took it out with the tech who was giving me the orientation to the car, what I saw was that every 10 seconds or so, you get a blinking yellow light which says, put your hands on the wheel. So it's driving for you, but not really.
Okay, you got to have your hands on the wheel.
You got to have your hands on the wheel or close.
If you go on YouTube, you'll see the orange trick for that thing, and if you take an orange and you wedge it into the steering wheel a particular way, you don't have to put your hands on it. You got to see. There's a lot of videos on this.
You told me that. You told me about.
And it's got to be an orange, like not an apple.
I don't. Look, regardless of what kind of fruit you like, my point is this: I'm still not ready to
let go.
I'm still not ready to let go. I must tell you that a few years back, when I was having some health challenges, I was really very keen on looking for that Tesla with the automatic driving, because I thought that was going to be the answer to some challenges. And right now, I'm not convinced that it's that great.
Really?
And I'm not convinced that even what I have is that great, nor would I go on a long trip and just look to sit back. I'm not ready to unfold the newspaper.
Gotcha. Didn't a guy get busted in the city for like sleeping for like miles on end behind?
Oh yeah. And honestly, I know someone. I do know someone who is an early Tesla buyer, who said to me he had absolutely no problem sitting behind the wheel with the car basically on auto drive, autopilot, whatever it's called in that, And, he's sitting and he's answering emails and he's doing whatever he was doing.
I mean, isn't it the point? That would be the reason. Yeah. Can you get?
I'm not ready for that.
Is it a fine if you text while driving while the car's an automatic?
I have no idea.
Good question.
I have no idea, but good question. Yeah, I really don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I really don't know. I mean, like I said, with my car, you got to put your hands on the wheel every few seconds, where it's, they're doubting that you're still sitting there.
So I got to say, we went 20 minutes over.
Wow.
It seems like a few minutes here. What a great subject. I just want to end with a little bit more about your website. Tell us a little bit about you and who should be contacting you to talk about this? Building owners, people who are ready to make the plunge, who need a consultant to manage the whole concept.
For sure. Building owners, for sure. Real estate investment trust, the companies that own lots of buildings. Certainly people who are making the financial decisions, people who are making the operational decisions, people who are building parking lots, garages, fleet owners for logistics centers, people who are building logistics centers.
And they can fill out right there.
There's a spot
form.
on our website for them to fill out some information. We'll get to them, or a phone call. We'll do it too. The telephone number is on the website as well.
Excellent.
And we're
and
happy
you're okay to
do
talk
that.
to people who have just ideas at this point and kind of.
I talk to them all the time.
All the time around the idea.
It's what's really interesting is that what's an idea today becomes a reality 6 months from now.
Yeah.
I had a conversation, very, very interesting. I had a conversation middle of the winter. I guess it was January. It was January, February. I went into a Midas dealership, and it was a franchise. I went in there. I needed tires. I hit a couple of potholes. And he was convenient. I called him up. He had the tires. He said, "No, I'm sorry. He didn't have the tire." I called him on a Saturday afternoon. He says, "I don't have it in the shop. I'll have it for you first thing Monday morning. You get here at 8 o'clock.
Very nice.
I said, "Great. You're my guy. You're my guy." I showed up at 8 o'clock. He says to me, "Okay, you watch the store. I'll be back in a half an hour with your tire."
Wow.
Because he had to go to Hicksville to pick up the tire from his warehouse.
That's some personal attention
But
there.
that was really, really cool, right? So while I'm there, I'm having this conversation with him, and he says to me, "So what do you do for a living?" And I told him, we do the turnkey solution. And he says, "Well, could I do that here?" I said, "Honestly, you got the perfect spot. You're on Jericho Turnpike in Huntington. You've got tremendous traffic flow. And the best thing ever, you've got a Dunkin' Donuts right next door."
Perfect.
I said, somebody plugs in their car, they walk across the driveway and buy a cup of coffee, and by the time they get their coffee and down half of it, their car's going to be charged, and ka-ching, ka-ching.
Enough for another 30, 40 miles, whatever.
So all you need to do is stand there and watch your machine make money for you. Okay? That was January, February, thereabouts.
But
And I thought, but here's my point.
Yeah,
Here's my point.
Yeah.
He called me up last week. And he said, "Mark, you remember me?" And he gave me his name. And I said, "Of course I do." And he said, "I was visiting with a friend of mine up in Boston, and he's got a shop like mine. He's got a lot more parking. What would it cost me what would cost him? What would it cost him to put in a couple of chargers?" He said, "Well, it depends upon where and how far, and this, all the variables that I told you about."
Yeah.
He said, "So what would it cost for my shop?" And I gave him a ballpark number. I said plus or minus $5,000-$7,000. I don't know.
Okay, right, based on his...
Because it all depends upon, there are a couple of variables in there. And so he said to me, "I'm giving that serious thought now." He says, "You still have my proposal?" I said, "Sure. Don't you have it? I emailed it to you." He says, "Do me a favor, send it to me again. I want to think about it."
He wasn't taking it seriously until recently.
But now he is. Okay? So here we are, the end of August. I was there 7 months ago.
Okay.
Okay? 7 months ago. And now it looks like it's becoming a reality.
Gotcha. So people are literally real time as we speak jumping on this bandwagon.
People are coming on board.
Wow.
They're seeing the reality. They're seeing more and more EVs out there. They're seeing the incentives. The legislation that just passed was a big wake-up call for a lot of people.
And
right?
based on today's chip shortage, having that consultant to make sure the project moves along is a key component.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
I get it, man.
You know, that's not predicated on chip shortage. It's predicated on knowing what you're doing.
Yeah.
You know?
Do
Because if you
EV
make
charging
it-
stations get held up? Do they start projects and not get done? Has that happened?
We haven't had that issue.
Have you seen it though throughout the country happen where?
I really haven't witnessed it. You know, if anything is holding it up, there are a couple of variables again. All right. It depends upon who's doing the project. In other words, is somebody doing it for themselves on their own property?
Yes.
Or they're doing it for a major organization like an
Sure.
MTA or a port authority.
Right, like a big, huge.
When you're dealing with those large organizations, those things, they move slowly.
No, believe me, I know, my friend.
That. They move very slowly. So that's one piece of it.
Mm.
Another piece, very honestly, is getting things expedited through the utilities.
Mm.
Because you can't just drop a charger in the ground and say, okay, I want to work this tomorrow.
Do the attorneys have it all worked out to overcome their risks?
Pretty much.
Really?
Yeah, it's
You're there then. You're there.
That stuff it's pretty tight, you know.
Awesome.
I mean, everybody's taking insurance, you know. Nobody's going out there without some kind of an umbrella. But my point is that the slowdowns are basically shipping of equipment
Got it.
and utilities more than anything else.
Getting the government to give you the permits to do the work.
No, it's getting somebody to the site, right, to authorize it, or seeing to it that there is sufficient. If there's not sufficient electricity, and I've got to go hat in hand to Con Ed or PSEG or whoever.
Oh, and make a deal. Oh, yeah.
No, it's not a matter of making a deal. It's a matter of getting to the right people to get them to move the electricity to where you need it.
Got it. So
if
it's
you
the
don't have it on
logistics
site,
of getting your guys to move.
You might have to buy a transformer. There are lots of things. They might have to pull power off of a pole that's, a half a block down the road.
Yes.
There are
yes.
all kinds of manipulations that have to go on.
Interesting.
So there are a lot of
Okay.
moving parts. A lot of moving parts. But that's what we manage. That's what we do.
Yeah.
That's what makes us special.
All right, man. Pretty incredible stuff here. We're gonna wrap this up here in a minute. And thank you for coming on CyberMasters.
And I really appreciate it.
Really fabulous, man.
This is we know each other 20 years at this point in time.
Yes, exactly.
This is the first time that I can recall that we have spent this amount of quality time together talking about serious stuff.
Okay.
And I'm enjoying that. I'm really enjoying that.
Excellent.
And I thank you for the opportunity.
Well, and I hope that you come back with your partner and
Happy
we make it
to.
a really bigger show, maybe a show and tell. And I'd love to see your car. Maybe we can get that going. See how it is. Maybe we'll
anytime,
take a
man.
drive. Teslas are extremely fast, so they're bullets.
Teslas are fast. BMWs are faster.
Nice.
Although I got to tell you right now, it's real interesting. Just earlier this week, Lucid advertised the Sapphire.
Okay.
That's their latest and greatest.
Okay, the Sapphire.
The Sapphire.
I saw that.
Okay. $250,000. Went on. What's today's date? Today's the 24th.
Yes, 24th.
Today's the 24th. Yesterday, the 23rd, was the first day that they were taking orders for the car.
Wow.
$250,000 a piece. 0 to 60. You ready for this? 2 seconds.
2 seconds.
Who needs it?
Crazy guys who want to drive.
1,200
fast.
horsepower.
Wow. Guys, thank you. See you next time. Have a great night. Thank you, Mark.
Ed, thank you.
Awesome,
Thank you.
guy.
Thank you so much.